I'm going to say welcome to the We Are Money podcast brought to you by Beasley, Mitchell and Company. Glad to have you aboard, and we got another fun podcast for you today, episode 2.1, as David's calling it, or 199. And we'll get to that here pretty soon about what we're talking about. So that other voice you heard is David. Welcome.
Welcome. Thanks, Brad.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you again.
Everything been going okay in your world?
In my world, doing all right. All right.
Nice. We have another person joining us today. Her name's Natalie. Natalie, say hello.
Hello.
Okay, Natalie is our producer, and you'll be hearing from her throughout the show. So it's nice to have you.
Thank you.
So on the We Are Money podcast, we try to bring you a whole bunch of different things, a whole bunch of topics that are interesting to people. And so we always try to bring in some, content about what is going on today and what is the new stuff in the tax law. And so we have our topic we're going to talk about is taxes today, Dave.
Yep. So 199A, this seems to be the hot button, new cool thing there.
Now, this is not the Canadian tax code.
No, not Canadian tax code A, but 199A, cap A.
Cap A, 199 cap A. So it's not like the 401A, which is the Canadian retirement account?
Correct. No.
Okay. So the 199 cap A deduction is a really interesting deduction. It came about with what I call the CPA Christmas Present that was issued, which is the new tax law that came into effect in December 27th of 2017 that changed a lot of the way that we're doing planning and everything for 2018, Dave.
Yep. So there's a whole bunch of new things that are coming in. I mean, everything in the new tax code with different standard deductions, loss of exemptions that we now have, but kind of focusing on the 199A is really more business related.
It really is. And so basically the 199A deduction is a 20% deduction off of taxable income related to income derived from what's called a qualified trader business. Now, qualified trader business is a new term, Dave, we haven't really heard in the tax code before.
No, and that always gets scary because we don't know exactly what they're going to do. They've issued some regulations on it, but it seems like all the continuing education classes we go to, they have a good idea, but there's still some things up there in the gray areas that we usually find on any business things.
And so my discussion when I talk to people about qualified trader business is I go back into the definition of a trader business for purposes of a deduction at all.
So it's a trader business like furs and caps and pelts and things like that, a trader business?
Trader business, yes. Trader Joe's as well. No, so yeah, any trade profession or any other type of business as such. So we're governed in the IRS tax code by code section 162. Now we're not going to be super code heads today and just start spouting out numbers even to show off how smart we are. You guys already know how smart we are. So the 162 deduction basically says that deductions are allowed for a trader business that are ordinary and necessary for that trader business. Very broad, David, because my trader business might be able to deduct something that your trader business cannot because it doesn't make sense for your trader business. And so when we're talking about this qualified trader business, it begs the question. It says, hey, anything then that has an ordinary and necessary deduction then may be a qualifying trader business. And that's essentially what the regulations have said, is that we can be a qualifying trader business so long as we don't fit into one of these categories. And like I said in a presentation I had made a while ago, was that the IRS doesn't tell you what qualifies, it tells you what doesn't qualify.
So then theoretically anything else that not on that list should qualify.
Right, exactly. It's kind of like you telling your kids, okay, you need to be good kids, but just don't do that and don't do that and don't. Well, I also meant for you to not do that either, but it's kind of like this negative reinforcement.
Yes, which works so well with kids.
Absolutely. So what it does is it basically says that a qualified trader business is any business other than those governed by, here's another code for you, code section 1202, little e3 big A. Okay. And this is a code section involving certain types of stocks that are exempt when you sell them. And so 1202 little e3 big A says that any trader business that involves the performance of services in the fields such as health, law, there you go, David, so that gets you.
Wah, 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 wah.
Accounting gets me.
Wah, 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 wah.
Actuarial sciences, which is all the other nerds that we haven't encompassed so far,
See,
right?
Yeah, I've heard that test's even harder than the bar. So, I mean.
I couldn't, the actuarial test, that stuff is hard. Performing arts, consulting, athletics. And then here's where it gets fun. It says any trader business where the principal asset of that trader business is the reputation and skill of one or more of his employees or owners. And so, David, I had talked with you about this deduction. I said, well, this is easy, David. All I have to do is show that I have no reputation and skill whatsoever, and I qualify as a trade or business.
I think that we can prove that.
Thanks, David. I appreciate it. So now we know that we fall under this stuff. And so it gets very confusing because people say, okay, well, I'm either a qualified trade or business, or I'm not a qualified trade or business. Well, if I'm not a qualified trade or business, Brad, then I don't get this deduction. And I say, not really. You do get the deduction if your income's below a certain threshold. And so the easy way that we always think about it when everybody's looking at their stuff is saying, if you're married and you make less taxable income than $315,000, or if you're single and you make less than $157,500, you get the deduction automatically.
Whether or not you're a qualified business.
Whether
right?
or not you're a qualified business. Now, what's interesting is that it's only on your business income. So W-2s are not business income.
Yeah, because you're an employee of.
So a lot of our clients who have S corporations that draw out salaries. So for example, there's a lot of real estate agents who form S corporations, receive money into their S corporation, pay themselves a salary because they want to save on Social Security tax. And then they look at this and they say, well, wait a second, gosh, I'm not going to get that full 20% because my wages aren't going to qualify. And so it's only what's left over. Why am I an S corp? And the answer is, well, maybe you probably shouldn't have been an S corp before because, you were the only one generating income for that S corp. So it's kind of goes back to a discussion of choice of entity and what people are doing in certain areas. But the 20% deduction is very valuable, Dave, because when you can qualify for this, it takes your top tax rate from 37% to 29.6 effectively.
Yep.
And so it's always interesting because now we're talking about some real money here for a lot of these people. And so crafting a strategy for a lot of our clients makes sense to where you either keep them below the threshold if they're a service business, and or you make sure the ones that are over the threshold that we can continue to take all the deductions. And there's other limitations too, Dave, right? Like wages.
Yep. So I think if you are one of the qualified business, or maybe if you're not, you have to let me know here. I've only read part of this.
It's okay. You're the attorney. I'm the tax guy.
Yeah. So if we have, limitations, and that's the part that comes on with the W-2, is that once you hit that threshold, then some of your deduction is limited to how much W-2 wages you've actually pulled out?
Yeah. So once you're over the threshold and you're a qualifying trade or business, then you must have W-2 wages in excess of 50% of your qualifying net income. So the example I use is that if you made $100,000 of qualifying trade or business, you have to have $200,000 of wages that you paid people inside that corporation, okay, to help offset that deduction. And what's interesting is that real estate people, when they first heard this, they said, oh man, we got left out of this. This is really tough. Well, no, because, we realized that, like it or not, the president who signed this bill into law is a real estate person. So there's a carve-out clause that people who are in real estate can also add in 2.5% of the historical cost of their building. So if you had a $10 million building, okay, you can do math as I'm talking, $10 million building, you get a 2.5% limitation on here. So now, as long as your qualifying trade or business isn't more than $250,000, then you still get to take the deduction. Okay. So it's a very complicated tax law. Like I have told people, this is the CPA's Christmas present that we got right around Christmas time, because it results in us doing a lot more tax strategy, a lot more tax discussion with clients, which ultimately, takes more time.
Yep.
So that's always interesting. There's a lot of legal aspects, David, when we get to it. And so what we're trying to tell people is that be aware of this deduction. Some people will fall into it, and some people who are right around these thresholds, you really need to take a look at your deductions and make sure that you can fall within these. It's a big difference for somebody. If David, you and I are both in the service professional deal, if I make $1 below the threshold and you make $1 above the threshold, our taxation is different.
Correct. Yep. Way different.
And so that's a big number on the same amount of income. So always a challenge, always interesting. We just encourage you, if you have questions, submit them to us on our Twitter feed. The We Are Money podcast, brought to you by Beasley Mitchell and Company. The Twitter handle is @Beasley Mitchell. So please follow us on Twitter also that is my shameless plug for the day.
Shameless plug.
So moving on to my favorite segment of our podcast, If Brad Ruled the World.
It's
time for If Brad Ruled the World. All right, Brad. So we got you all set up today, and we're going to do things a little different here today. Natalie is actually going to read these questions to you.
Okay. And I've never seen these questions.
Natalie, you're going to read them, or am I going to read them?
I can read them.
Okay.
Can I
Why don't
have
you?
them?
Why don't you read them?
All right, here we go. If you could pick one superhero to rule the world alongside you, who would it be and why?
If I could pick one superhero to rule the world alongside me, I would pick Iron Man. One, because he's awesome, and I think that I would totally get along with Tony Stark. I think very similar personalities.
You don't think you guys being too similar would clash?
Well, I think that it would just be like doubling of efforts, because then we could just be like Iron Man 3, right? It'd just be 1 + 1 is 3 with me and him. So I totally enjoy Iron Man. I like the fact that he really is just super smart. He's kind of like Batman a little bit, because he's just a really smart guy and really rich and can do all this other stuff. But he's, to me, way cooler than Batman. And we're totally going to get in fights with people on Twitter, obviously, over this of Batman versus this. But I really think Iron Man would be a really, really cool one. What about you, Dave?
I don't know if I'd go Iron Man, just because he'd probably get a little old, and although he would come up with he just
Iron Man would get old.
He'll get he'd want to like.
Are you saying that I'm old? Or are you saying Iron Man?
He would
I
want
think
to
that's
put.
what he's saying.
He would want to put like a shield thing in your arm that popped out a calculator, and that would probably hurt.
Well, but you know
Enough
what
to
though?
do
I
that.
kind of already have that in my head. You start giving me numbers, and it just boom, it just flies. I'm already like a human Iron Man calculator.
Mhm.
Just don't ask me really hard math, and I can't do that one. But most simple math, pluses, minuses, multiplication tables up to 12. I'm totally like a human calculator.
So I think you still have to go Superman.
Think Superman?
I think Superman, because I can be like, hey, can you fly me over there?
But then how do you, so let's discuss this. Okay, so you're right. Superman would be cool because he can fly. He can step in front of you if people are shooting bullets at you, which I don't know if that happens with you on a regular occurrence, but sometimes for me it does. But I think Superman can stand in front. But so you say, hey, Superman, I want to go have lunch in Florence, Italy today. How are you getting there?
Well, I'm going to ask Iron Man to build me a thing that I can fly behind.
That we can harness?
I can harness on.
Okay, because if not, I vision you grabbing to the back of Superman and flying like Lois Lane romantically across the Atlantic Ocean to get to Florence, and that's kind of weird.
It depends on which Superman it is.
Okay. Is it like
Which Superman would you prefer?
Yes.
So let's talk about this. So which Superman is it? Is it Dean Cain Superman? Is it Christopher Reeves? I almost said Michael Reeves. That was a terrible. It was Christopher Reeves. Which Superman?
Probably what's the new guy, Henry Cavill? Is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Good choice.
Yeah.
He's
He probably
good
smells
looking.
the best of all of them, I would think.
Probably smells the best.
Yeah. Because as you're flying, you'd get that in.
Probably smells the most like Superman.
Yeah.
All right. He doesn't have super BO or anything.
No.
Like that. No.
No.
Okay. All right. We're good. All right. Moving on. Question 2.
All right, question number 2. The world is overrun by sporting events, and we have to eliminate one professional sport. Which sport are you banishing?
Which sport am I banishing of professional sporting events? Okay, just because I don't understand it is cricket. Okay, I don't understand. It's kind of like baseball, but it's not baseball, and I just don't understand. And they play it for so long, I don't understand it at all. I don't know. That's what I would go with. Cricket. David.
I like your answer because I don't really get that at all. I mean, the other one, I would like alienate a whole bunch of people. Just soccer, or I would allow soccer to stay as long as they would change the rule about ending in ties.
Okay.
I don't like that.
You don't like any ties. So if you could
don't like
change
any
that,
ties.
then you'd be okay.
Yes.
All right. Now, for the record, you do coach soccer.
I do coach soccer.
Okay, so you're not totally opposed to
I'm
soccer.
not totally opposed to soccer. I'm opposed to I would want to get rid of the ties.
Now, I know
in
recently
soccer.
this weekend, I know that you did receive a red card from the official because you did not understand what offsides was.
Well, nobody understands what offside
Okay.
is.
Well, I mean, I get that too. I just kept my mouth shut and you got the red card. So question 3.
All right, question 3. At the end of the 17th century, Russian Emperor Peter the Great introduced a tax on men's facial hair. Which city would you allow this tax to make a comeback in?
Which city would I allow that to make a comeback in? That's awesome.
You'd make like ton of money if you
Ton
did it
of
in
money?
the Northwest.
Yeah, I think I would got to go with like a Seattle-ish because that to me, Seattle screams beard. But although, like Minnesota area seems like in the winter they would get very beardy,
It's pretty cold.
So yeah, I would think
Beardy?
Beardy, is that a word?
I don't know.
Bearderific?
Bearderific.
Yeah,
That's definitely a
So
word.
the answer to that I think is I'm going to go with Seattle.
Nice, nice.
I like it. All right. Question number 4. CPAs are in charge of counting the ballots for the Oscars. What other award show would you put CPAs in charge of?
Well, first of all, I think Family Feud. Okay, CPAs need to be in charge of Family Feud because some of these answers just don't make any sense, and it hardly ever adds up to 100 people. Like they say, 100 people, they ask these questions, and they go with the top 5. I mean,
it adds like to 86.
It adds to like 86. I mean, like it just, by mathematics, it doesn't work. And so I really think that for the integrity of the Family Feud process is that we need to have CPAs involved in the integrity of Family Feud. Just a thought. I mean, maybe, you know what, though? That's not really an award show, is it?
They give you an award at the end, but I mean, award show would be something.
See, I'm surprised like they don't do it for
Grammys.
like the American Idol or something like that. You know, there's no CPAs that count up American Idol.
Well, I think there are. Isn't there a firm in LA that does that?
I'm sure. I mean, there's firms in LA that do everything. I mean, I guess.
I thought there was one where they counted the votes, but really, what are the votes that they're counting? They're like looking at their app as it's coming in, going 1, 2,
Right.
3.
Well, we saw
Well-
what happened when they had the CPAs involved in old, what's his name? Steve Harvey read the wrong
Oh yeah,
read the wrong one. So it doesn't really matter.
Oh, yeah.
So I still go with my first one, Family Feud.
Nice. All right. Question 5. You were president for one day, even though you're already ruling the world, and you can make one change to our tax law. What is it?
One change to our tax law.
You rule the world, but only kind of. You can only make the one change.
Well, okay. So one change to the tax law. I think that I would ask for clarification and make the entertainment deduction have some more clarity. Because and the only reason is I was discussing it with somebody today, and they asked me about the deduction for entertainment that went away, and well, if I go to dinner, is that all right? I'm like, yeah, as long as you're not entertained by the dinner. Well, it's like, so what does that mean? I have to go with boring people to
You
dinner?
have to invite your CPA to dinner.
Absolutely. So like for me, I know that every time I go to dinner with David, it is all business. It is not entertaining whatsoever. It actually is a charitable donation because it's not really good.
Because you're being seen with me.
Yes, it's really not good for me to see, be seen with David out in public. But it's very confusing with the entertainment deduction. So I think I'd try to make that clear.
How would you make it clear?
I think I would just let a free for all. I'd say, okay, yeah, you know what? As long as it's entertainment, I cap it at some level. We'll cap it at $200 per occurrence or something like that. So you get a little bit, but even these extravagant things, 'cause some of these things are kind of extravagant. The box at the football stadiums and those kind of things get a little extravagant from an entertainment standpoint. But that's what I would do.
Nice, nice.
All right, so I am done ruling the world for now, and we're going to move on to David's favorite segment, David's Legal.
The information contained on David's Legal Corner is provided as a general public service. The listeners, if any, are advised to check for changes to current law to consult with an attorney. David's Legal Corner is not licensed to provide legal services in Canada, any province of Canada, any territory of Canada, or any other land Canada may or may not own, used to own, think it owns, or apologizes about owning. Legal assistance shall not be provided about moose, A, Mounties, A, syrup, A, curling, A, maple leaves, A, the Maple Leafs, A, hockey, A, curling, A, Dudley Do-Right, A, Snidely Whiplash, A, Howie Mandel, A, or Celine Dion, A, although his heart may go on. Should David's Legal Corner have forgotten any such Canadian references, it is very, very sorry.
So, I mean, I know that you have a lot of content that you put in there, Dave, but did you have curling twice? I think you had curling in there a couple times.
Did I have curling in there? I really like curling.
Well, I mean, I didn't know if you're talking about the one where we slide a block across a piece of ice and two people go through and do the broom, all the way down and those kind of things, or if the second one was like, I'm just doing weights in the gym, because I like that one too.
Yeah, I really like curling. Yeah.
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
curling would be the sport I would get rid of. I'm not a fan of
Wow.
curling.
Why? So let's explain it. Why are you not a fan of curling?
I don't get it. It's kind of like how you feel with cricket. I just
Right.
don't understand it.
But I mean, it's you use a broom to move things across an ice. I mean, that's totally practical applications there.
I just try to think, how did this evolve in a bar? Did they were like throwing the stones across and...
Oh, it involved at the end of the night of a bar. Obviously, people were a little bit inebriated. They were throwing stuff across the floor, and the guy was trying to clean up, and he's like, hey, look, and he swept, and the thing went further. And they're like, hey, this is a great idea. Do we have darts? No, we can throw these rocks.
I just like any sport where you have to pull out one of those protractor things to determine who's closer and who's farther away.
Okay, so fun fact about curling. Curling stones are only made from one quarry in one rock formation in Scotland. I found that on the Science Channel. last week.
Wow.
Yes, very surprised. So that's the only place in the entire world that curling stones are made. So anyways,
Interesting.
keep going with your David's Legal Corner, David.
Well, in David's Legal Corner, we're actually going to talk about is a new thing. You know, recently there was the passing of Burt Reynolds, and that so otherwise known as Turd Ferguson to some people.
Yes,
one of those funny name, Turd Ferguson, funny name.
Funny guy, Scooby Doo.
Yep, Scooby Doo. Yep. But one thing that popped up here is people are saying, well, Burt Reynolds omitted his son from his will.
Okay, I can see where you would do that.
Reading that, where you'd omit your son from the will.
Must have been a really bad son.
Yeah, you'd think so. And this is a little different than what you'd had before on here. And that's actually all the information that we really have. However, he named his niece, Nancy Lee Brown Hess, as executor of his estate. So you might think, well, did he just not leave anything to him or not? But what it actually does show is that as opposed to some of these other celebrities, like you had Prince and Aretha Franklin that died without wills or things like that, Burt Reynolds actually had a trust with his estate planning. And actually, as part of the will, which actually isn't even there all the time, is he had actually noted that he had provided for his son under his trust. And everything you read now says, well, that's all the information we have on that, which is exactly one of the reasons why you actually have a trust.
So I know, David, that we talk a lot to our clients, and you provide some good, solid advice all the time on doing a will and a trust at the same time. So what are some of the advantages then of having a trust during your lifetime?
Well, so during your lifetime with the trust, you are setting yourself up for the fact that if you ever need help, somebody managing your property with you, if you can't do that for any sort of reason, you can always name a co-trustee or a successor trustee to actually help you out with that trust. Also, things are not titled in your name so that when you actually pass away, there is actually no probate needed. There's no will needed. There's no public filing needed. All that people need to be contacted are just the people that are in your trust. So you don't have to do a public filing or anything like that. It's very private. And actually, most of the time we find that it actually helps get the administration going quicker and gets the assets doing what you want them to do.
And you had mentioned privacy because like we had seen in other ones where people die with either just a will or they die with no will, then the assets get subject to a public forum where basically it is presented at probate with the judge that says, hey, here is the last will of, in this case, Burt Reynolds. Burt Reynolds. And he had two sons, or he had one son and he had an ex-wife, and here's how these assets are going to get split. And there's a period of protest, right? That creditors can come in and say, no, I had a creditor against Burt Reynolds. He owed me $1 million. And so, they have to file paperwork. So it becomes this very public display. And with the trust, it tends to keep that nice and quiet. It allows for a quick turnaround of assets. And for a lot of these people, for a lot of, like, for instance, our clients, they have ongoing businesses. And so what happens is that if you don't properly plan, have the trust in place, have these assets in the trust, if something happens to you, it could grind your business to a halt.
Yeah, and with a trust, then if something like that happens, your successor trustee can step right in. They're now the new owner of the business, and then they would have the authority to name a successor president or hop in there to start keeping the business going.
And just because you're the trustee doesn't mean that you actually are any beneficiary, right? Those can be two separate people.
Correct. They can be the same, but they can also be different. And a lot of times they can even be a corporate entity, meaning a trust company, a bank, a CPA firm that can help you out to take care of that, get that done.
And a lot of times what we see is that, like in cases where we're named as trustee, because I'm trustee on several trusts, our corporation is, and myself personally, is that there's a lot of governing documents in this trust that allows people to dictate what happens, whether they have a child with special needs, or they have a child with substance abuse problems, or they have a child that has other types of issues. This helps preserve that estate so that the money just doesn't get spent in a fashion that a lot of times the decedent, the person that passed away, wouldn't want to. I know that you and I have even worked on trusts where we had a stinker provision put in.
Yep. So stinker provision, which was made famous with Paris Hilton and that kind of thing, where that if the beneficiary is not acting in a way that the trustee or their parents would have thought appropriate, that the trustee can then withhold distributions and everything from there.
Right. So it puts a lot of pressure on the trustee. However, it provides a lot of protection for the assets that are inside there.
Yep.
So good discussion. Basically, the big main takeaway, David, that you would have on that is get your trust. Don't just leave it to happenstance, because you never know what's going to happen. You've worked your whole life for all your assets. You might as well keep them and put them where they're supposed to go.
Yeah, there's sometimes when just a will take care of it, depending on your assets. But a lot of times there are better ways to get things taken care of, and trusts are really our workhorses that we get this done, and they keep it, again, private. So I'm just surprised that more people, especially of this type of wealth, don't do that. But make sure you get that. Make sure you check it out to see if that's something that you should be doing.
Okay. Once again, we are the We Are Money podcast, brought to you by Beasley, Mitchell and Company. You can follow us on Twitter at Beasley Mitchell, and follow us on Facebook, and leave your comments on the iTunes podcast when you get there. So the last section for us right now is the best code ever.
Fibonacci binary. The Internal Revenue Code. What will it allow? The best code ever now. The best code ever now.
That always gets me nice and excited. It's always a fun little tune.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Absolutely. So, Natalie, you have done some research for us and have 3 sets of 4 laws where 3 are true and 1 is fake. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And we've never seen these. I haven't, at least. So I have no idea. So we're going to have to guess.
That's right. All right. So the first set, number 1, if your parrot talks too loudly in Oak Bay, British Columbia, you could be fined $100. Number 2, in Quebec, it is illegal to wear a yellow hat on a Sunday. Number 3, any comic books that depict a crime are technically illegal in Canada. And the last one, purple garage doors are against the law in Ontario.
Wow. Okay.
Well, number 2 would kind of negate any Curious George fans.
Any Curious George fans? Yeah. And I mean, I think that would be tough. So I think number 2 is going to be very hard. Although, gosh, number 4, I'm wanting to say number 4 might be false, because if it's purple and it's Ontario, that means it also has to be in French. And I don't know what the French word for purple is. Le purple.
I think it's lay purple.
Lay purple?
Yes.
I think that works. So you say number 2 is fake.
Number 2.
I'm going to go with number 4 is fake.
All right. And the fake one is, in Quebec, it is illegal to wear a yellow hat on a Sunday.
What?
Oh,
Where would that come from? What? Oh, that's fake.
That's fake.
Of
Yes,
course.
exactly.
That's why you question it.
That would come from Natalie.
Oh, goodness
That's where
gracious.
that
It's a
comes
law
from.
I would impose.
Yes.
in
You would
Quebec.
impose. Okay.
Apparently, Natalie hates yellow hats.
Yellow is my
Only on
favorite color,
Sundays.
but
Only on
not on the
Sundays.
hat. And
No.
on Sunday, no.
Okay. All right. Got us. Okay.
See, I thought because, Curious George and the man in the yellow hat.
Question 2.
All right, number 2. First one. In Vancouver, it is illegal to shower and play music at the same time. Number 2. Snowmen taller than 30 inches are illegal in Prince Edward Island. Number 3. Hunting by flashlight is against the law in Alberta. And number 4. Selling artificially colored chicks is illegal in Nova Scotia.
Chickens, right?
Chickens.
I believe so.
Okay.
I would hope so.
Okay. All right. Yeah, well, this is Canada, so they would be more proper than we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
But they do have a
colored
lot more
chicks.
comedians per capita.
This is true. I'm going to go with the 30-inch snowman is fake.
I don't know. I don't see how you enforce playing music while you're in the shower. So I'm thinking of this from an enforcement way. So I could see them going around and taking a hockey stick to anything that's 31 inches or above on the snow. Just driving around on their snow things. Just
Poor kid's out there making 1 lump of the snowman. He's cool. Two is good. He gets to the top 3 and then just boom.
Yep. And then the sorry comes in.
The sorry, I just knocked down your snowman.
Yes.
Okay.
And that. But I don't see how you enforce the shower.
Okay.
Mainly that's because I would be arrested because I love showering with music on.
Okay. So let's hope that happens in Canada and I can get you to move there and you can get arrested. All right, Natalie. So which one's the fake one?
And you were right, David. It is not illegal to shower and play music at the same time in
Yes!
Vancouver.
Okay. It's illegal to use a toaster in the shower at the same time. That's kind of hard.
It's not illegal. It's just
Punishable
Kinda
by
deadly.
death.
This is
it's
true. Okay.
actually, use it. Darwin would approve.
Yes. There we go. All right. Next one.
All right. Number 1, removing your feet from pedals when bicycling is illegal in Ottawa.
Ottawa.
In Ottawa. Number 2, chipped or cracked bathtubs are forbidden in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. Number 3, in British Columbia, it is illegal to do backflips while intoxicated. And number 4, it's against the law in Montreal to swear in French.
See, I would say 4 because I would think, you'd have to be able to swear in both English and French, right?
You can't just swear in
Yeah,
one.
they can't just swear in one. You have to swear in both.
Right. What was it? Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, right? Or was it
Yes.
one of those movies
Yeah.
where they had written a
curse
swear
word.
word on the side of the building or side of the truck, and the policeman pulled them over and said, "No, you have to write that in French also." They're in trouble. Gosh. Okay.
But the one thing I want you to keep in mind is that we've just picked out the fake one. The rest of these are actual laws.
Actual.
Yeah, good thing to keep in mind.
So I'm going to say it probably is illegal to do backflips in British Columbia because it's just dangerous for people. So I'm going to say that one's probably okay. Chipped bathtubs, it's probably against some type of code. I would be willing to say removing your pedals. I'm going to say swearing in French is fake.
I'm going to go swearing in French is fake because the only chips that I would think would be illegal would be your chili cheese Fritos, Brad.
Oh yeah, but if I ruled the world, they would totally be legal.
Yes.
All right. In British Columbia, it is illegal to do backflips while intoxicated. It is fake. You can do all the backflipping you want when you're drunk in British Columbia.
Okay, so quick poll. All right, of the three of us, who can actually do a backflip while sober? But can anybody do a backflip while they're sober?
I can't do one while I'm sober, and I probably wouldn't try if I was.
Well, I mean, I
inebriated,
could see
but-
myself trying if I was inebriated. I probably still couldn't do it.
I definitely could not do a backflip.
Okay, see, that's just very weird to me. It's very odd. Sounds good. Well, it's always fun to do the best code ever. We'll have that on all of our podcasts, and it's always a good time. So as we finish up here on the podcast, we are the We Are Money podcast, brought to you by Beasley, Mitchell and Company. Again, follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, follow us any other social medias randomly that Natalie's will be putting together. I'm sure we'll have some type of Instagram thing that we do as well. And so just once again, thanks everybody for being with us today. David, I appreciate you being here.
I appreciate being here. Thanks, Brad.
Natalie, thanks for our first run with you as well. It was very fun.
Hey, thanks. It was fun to be here.
Sounds good. Well, thank you everybody for listening, and we'll catch you guys next time. Have a great one.